Hello one and all, I hope you're having a great day. I'd like to take a few minutes to address something I think everyone seems to have missed when it comes to the WotC's OGL controversy. That is that it's just a marketing tool, it has no legal teeth. I'm making another video to go with this one about OneD&D and Wizard's Dungeon Master problem. That video will also cover part of the direction WotC is taking D&D that no one seems to be seeing. If you want to check it out, the link will be in the video description and in a card at the end of this video. For those of you who come to this channel for my old school gaming videos, specifically Dark Sun and Ravenloft content, don't worry, I still have lots of that coming down the pike. I just had to say these things about OneD&D and the new OGL, and once I have, I'll get back to the content you all love. Before I go any further, let me get the disclaimers and my biases out of the way. I am not a legal professional. The arguments I put forward in this video are not legal advice, just my thoughts based on my experience and less than an hour's worth of research I did on publicly available sources. Before you make any decisions that could affect your livelihood, I urge you to contact a licensed legal professional local to you and do your own research. In addition to this, even if my conclusions turn out to be correct, I'm only dealing with the laws in the United States of America. The laws and legal precedents I refer to in this video may not apply to you if you live outside the legal jurisdiction of the U.S. As for my biases, I'm an old school DM who has always seen Wizards of the Coast as brilliant marketers but poor game designers. When I first encountered them through Magic the Gathering in the mid-90s, I thought to myself, these guys have tricked hordes of people into paying stacks of cash for cheap cards with bad art by building in scarcity. Great for them, bad for the gaming community. This brings me to the point of this video. All the OGLs were nothing more than marketing strategies. A way to make consumers and fan creators think WotC had more legal control of D&D than they really had. Here's the problem with any OGL for any tabletop game, at least as it pertains to mechanics of the game. Under US law, you can't copyright game rules. Until all this hubbub hit the community, I thought this was common knowledge. Having said that, there are ways they can be patented to a limited degree, and promotional materials like logos can be trademarked. Also, certain aspects of the game, like lore and the accompanying monsters and characters, can be copyrighted. The last thing I want to cover in this video is about the creators of videos and articles that are D&D centered and why the OGL would not affect them even if they were talking about lore. For your convenience, I've put a chapter index in the video description that will allow you to skip forward to any part of this video and make it easy to use as a reference. Okay, let's get into this. It was established in U.S. legal precedent by the United States Supreme Court in 1879 that the method of doing something could not be copyrighted. To give credit where it's due, the screenshots I'm using in this portion of the video are from an article called Not Playing Around, Board Games and Intellectual Property Law, written by Daniel J. Schaefer. It was published on the website of the American Bar Association. I have put a link to it in the video description so you can go read it for yourself. In the case of Barker v. Selden, the plaintiff had brought a case of copyright infringement before the court because their method of accounting was used in a bookkeeping ledger product by the defendant. The court found for the defendant in the case, and one of the presiding justices, Justice Joseph Bradley, wrote, quote, "Whilst no one has the right to print or publish his book, or any material part thereof, as a book intended to convey instructions in the art, any person may practice and use the art itself which he has described and illustrated therein. The copyright of a book on bookkeeping cannot secure exclusive rights to make, sell, and use accounting books prepared upon the plans set forth in such book." End quote. This laid out that in U.S. copyright law that a set of rules or method of doing something could not be copyrighted. Bring that forward to the current copyright law in the United States, the copyright law of 1976, and you will find that it still holds true. Again, this screenshot is from the previously mentioned article. In the Copyright Act of 1976, it states that, quote, "In no case does copyright protection for an original work of authorship extend to any idea, procedure, process, system, method of operation, concept, principle, or discovery, regardless of the form in which it is described, explained, illustrated, or embodied in such work." End quote. That pretty much covers the basis when it comes to the question of if a set of game rules, the procedures and processes, can be copyrighted. The answer is no, they can't. There is a link to the copyright.gov website in the description, so you can go do your own research if you want to clarify anything I have said here. Alright, so we have clearly established in the United States that WotC cannot and has not copyrighted any edition or subset of the rules of D&D themselves. What other method of protection of the mechanics of D&D might they have employed? Well, in the US it is possible to patent a method of doing a thing. This does extend to game rules, although my limited research could not answer if each part had to be separately patented or if the entire work could be covered under one patent. By this I mean, can they patent the whole of 5th edition under one patent? Not likely, because it was released piecemeal over the course of several years, and the patent must be filed within 1 year of the process being put into the public sphere. Can an entire book of rules, like the Player's Handbook, be covered under one patent? Maybe. I have very little time to investigate this. More research is necessary. Does patent law restrict patents to simple rules, like the basics of armor class and to hit bonus? Once again, maybe. I would love to see someone knowledgeable in US patent law comment on this, or better yet, make a video on the subject. Also, because of my limited time to research this subject, I am not sure if Wizards has even taken the trouble to patent any of their editions of D&D as they produced them. They would have been unable to patent 2nd edition AD&D or older editions because of the 1-year time limit that would have passed long before they bought D&D, over 8 years into the run of 2nd edition. If TSR had patented those older editions, WotC may have bought the patents to them in 1997 when they acquired D&D, although those patents would have long since expired, having only a 20-year lifespan. This means that 3rd edition and older game mechanics should have no legal protection no matter how they went about protecting them in the past. As for 3.5 and later editions, they may have protection for a while longer if Wizards patented them. There is one thing Wizards has done that may offer them some protection, of course. If you signed a contract with WotC saying you will only make D&D related content under the rules they set forth, you are giving up your much broader rights to use the mechanics and getting nothing out of it. This is why I said that any OGL, even the ORC that Paizo is proposing, is nothing more than a marketing tool. They are using it to trick you into thinking you have to play by their rules when the law sets no such constraints on you. It's just a way for them to control you and to get a cut at the same time. If you see something I've missed and have the evidence to back it up, please put it in the comments below. As I said at the beginning of this video, I'm no lawyer. I could be missing something here. Finally, let's take a look at content creators who are doing reviews, lore, playthrough, or just in general discussion videos, streams, and/or articles whose subject is D&D. Unless you are copying large sections of WotC-owned product directly and without changing them in a significant way, example, the YouTuber who was reading Van Richten's Guide to Vampires word for word, making each chapter a video, you are protected by the Fair Use Clause of the Copyright Act of 1976. Once again, this definitely applies to creators in the US. Ones outside the US, say like AJ Pickett, may or may not be protected by a similar law in their country, or trade treaty with the US. I'd say chances are better that this is true in English-speaking countries who are on good terms with the US. Once again, I'm not a lawyer, so you'll want to do your own research and contact local licensed legal professionals before making any financial decisions for yourself. So what is fair use? In the US and many other countries, it is a way to make use of copyrighted materials like game lore, monsters, or NPCs in a limited way without violating the copyright of that material. For the U.S., the part of the copyright law that covers fair use is Title 17, the Copyright Act of 1976, Section 107. This section identifies things such as criticism, teaching and scholarship, research, and commentary as areas suitable for fair use of copyrighted materials. To meet the standards of fair use, the new work must show at least some of the following attributes. The more the better. Once again, this screenshot comes from the article Not Playing Around, Board Games and Intellectual Property Law by Daniel J. Schaffner, published on the American Bar Association website. If you want to claim fair use, you should consider: Number 1. What is the purpose of the work? Is it purely educational in nature? Are you going to earn any money from it? You can profit from fair use material, but not to the point that you're seen by the court to be taking market share away from the copyright owner, using their work as the foundation. As you will see, much of the fair use doctrine is very subjective, and up to a judge to decide where your work falls as to whether it meets the fair use standard or not. Number 2, the nature of the copyrighted work being used to create your work. If it is a work of non-fiction, such as a manual or history book, the law sees the work as less a creation of the copyright holder and more a collection of facts presented by the copyright holder in the copyrighted work. This is not to say that non-fiction is fair game for playing fast and loose with the fair use rules. Claims of fair use of such copyrighted works have and will be in the future found wanting by judges. The more creative the copyrighted work is, example, a D&D novel, the more you'll have to rely on the other parts of the fair use doctrine to buttress your claim of fair use. Number 3, the amount of original copyrighted work in proportion to your content that you intend to claim fair use on. How much of your content is word for word the copyrighted work, and how much of that work is used unadulterated? The example given earlier of a YouTuber giving a short intro to his video, then spending the rest of the video reading aloud from Van Richten's Guide to Vampires, is a great example of using too much of the original copyrighted work in proportion to his content to claim fair use. On the other hand, running an adventure live stream could be seen as fair use, because the copyrighted adventure is just the framework for the new content. Very little of the new content, if any, would be a direct quote. Most of the stream would be the DM putting their spin on the adventure and the players reacting to that, so mostly original content based on the copyrighted work. I will say again, but not for the last time, that fair use is very subjective in U.S. law. A judge may not see things the way you do. Number 4, the amount of harm that could be caused by the new work to the copyright holder. I touched on this earlier. If you're going to potentially crowd the copyright holder out of market share, then it is unlikely that a judge will find that your work falls under fair use. This would seem to imply that Paizo's first edition of Pathfinder would have fallen outside fair use, and that the OGL was necessary for them to do what they did. This is not the case though. Fair use only applies to copyrighted works. As we established earlier, Wizards of the Coast does not own the copyright to the game rules for D&D 3.5. No one does. They may or may not have a patent on those rules, in which case a license would be necessary, but as for right now I can't say if they ever patented any of the rule sets or not. Okay, here's a quick and dirty explanation of fair use law as far as my untrained eye can determine. You can use copyrighted works to base your content on without infringing on said copyright, but you'll want to use as small a part as possible. The more the content is your own creation, the more likely it will be seen as fair use in the eyes of the law. Once again, this is subject to the determination of a judge. Also, don't crowd out the copyright holder from the market. A rising tide lifts all boats, so don't compete for the same money as the copyright holder using their copyrighted work, even in part. This is where reviewers and lore video makers come in. You are using parts of a copyrighted work, adding value to it, maybe making money in the process, but you're also giving the copyright holder free advertising. You get yours and they get theirs, and nobody's toes get stepped on in the process. Well, I think that covers most of it. My summation is this. Any OGL that purports to give you access to copyrighted game mechanics is a trick designed to make you believe you don't have the right to use those mechanics without it. In the United States, the country Wizards is located in, game rules cannot be copyrighted. The caveat to this is they may or may not hold the patent to those rules. Please, if anyone can find out if WotC does hold such patents, let us know in the comment section of this video. What I hope you've learned from this video, Wizards of the Coast is not your friend. They are not trying to give you the best game experience possible. They are a corporation whose one and only goal is to make as much money as possible, as cheaply as possible. There's nothing wrong with them making money. There is something wrong with the community allowing them to make money without giving us a great product in return. I have never had any love for WotC, so I support them getting their just desserts for pushing 30 years of garbage on people who couldn't see it for what it was. Now that the veil has been lifted and the community sees them for who they are, maybe more people will pull WotC's hand out of their pocket and try other things. WotC needs the community. The community does not need WotC. On that note, if you love 5e, stick with it. I've been running a 2e game for over 30 years and could happily do so for many lifetimes. You could do the same with 5e. If that works for you, then there's no need to move on to a new edition. Speaking of 2e, there's lots of stuff out there that will let you get into one of the older editions. I have several videos about converting 2e to 5e and back. I have put links to those in the description of this video. This may also be a great time to try other RPGs. There are hordes of them, and one for every taste. You don't need WotC. Walk away and let nature take its course. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you found it useful. Remember to check the video description and the end card for my video about WotC's DM problem. It will cover why Wizards is trying to get rid of DMs. Please also remember to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and especially comment on this one. Have a great day.